Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in across the continent and beyond for another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. For the huge number of you, I think 3/4 of you are new to us. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world, and everything we do goes to our YouTube channel. So you can check out this program again, you can share it with your family and friends, you can check out almost 4,000 other programs on every science and exploration topic imaginable right there. So there's so much to explore and discover. Before I dive in with our topic du jour, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, you can play along with a little 4-question quiz as a class if you'd like to pull this up on a separate tab, or if you don't, you can just yell out the answers in your class when we get to that in about 20-25 minutes. I'll make sure to put that in the chat in just a second as well. Now, of all the days that so many new of you could be joining us, that's some good grammar on my part for our younger kids. We are in the middle of our Parks Canada British Columbia series. We have done a bevy of series with Parks Canada over the years, but we wanted to showcase the BC coastal parks. Now, I'm in Newfoundland on the east coast of Canada. I'm actually closer to Morocco in North Africa than I am to British Columbia. So this is really exciting for me too, to get to go on an exploratory journey to learn about the history and some of the amazing wildlife on British Columbia's wild coast. Now, yesterday we had 6,000 kids for Growing Up Whale, and we wanted to keep the Growing Up series going. So we are talking today about Growing Up Wolf. Now, Joe Daniels is our Parks Canada educator extraordinaire. He's going to take us on a bit of a journey, and I can't wait for all your questions at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to zip my lip. Joe, welcome to the broadcast, and take us away, man.
Hello, bonjour. Thanks so much, Jesse. My name's Joe, as Jesse was saying, from Parks Canada, and I'm really excited to share some information about one of, in my opinion, the coolest critters we have here on our coast, coastal wolves. I got a bit of a presentation I'll be starting with, and I'm going to begin by giving us a bit of an orientation as to where I am, where we're talking about today. So I'm joining you live from Vancouver in British Columbia. You can see that in the top right of your screen there. I'm on the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations today here. And I'll be talking a little bit about Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. So when you look at this map, those are those green locations that you'll see to the left side on the west side of Vancouver Island. Pacific Rim National Park Reserve extends about 125 kilometers from the communities of Tofino at the north end to the communities of Port Renfrew at the south. Often this part of British Columbia is referred to as the wet coast. Fun fact, we get about 3 meters of precipitation here every year. So it was a very wet place. You'll find great examples of temperate coastal rainforests here, rocky shorelines, coastal sandy beaches, and the nearshore waters of the Vancouver Island shelf. Parks Canada works collaboratively with 9 different coastal First Nations here in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve to manage the natural and cultural resources of this very special place. Our teams also work to protect upwards of 8 species at risk, sometimes more, that can be found in the park, as well as rehabilitating salmon habitat and coastal dune ecosystems that are really important for some of the species in the park. But one of the species that we do a lot of work to study in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve are coastal wolves. Now, how do we do this work? How do we study these animals? Well, we use trail cameras. So this is a friend of mine, Todd, who works in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. He's part of our resource conservation team there. And he's installing a trail camera. So this is a remote camera with a motion sensor on it that automatically captures photos of animals that will be passing by. Sometimes we get video from these cameras as well. These cameras have provided a really fascinating window into the lives of these animals in our park. I've got a great example of one of those videos right here, so you can see some coastal wolves that you would see in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve, or that live in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. These are really beautiful animals. I have another video that I'll share here. These are some wolves that are exploring the coastline at high tide. So you can see the water level is much higher here. And the wolves are kind of prowling along the water. There's a second one coming up behind there. Really interesting fact about the wolves in Vancouver Island is they are a genetically distinct subspecies of gray wolf. So we often call them sea wolves here. on Vancouver Island, or coastal wolves. They have a subspecies name, so Canis lupus crassidon. Sounds super cool. Sounds like something from the Ice Age. And they live pretty much exclusively along the shore. They're living in the forest, but they get from 75 to 90% of their food from the ocean. They're also incredible swimmers. They can swim 13 to 14 kilometers between islands out looking for food. Really, really amazing. I have a video that I'm going to share that's a bit intense, but this one shows wolves eating some really big stuff they can find on our beaches. Like, there's all sorts of food available in Pacific Rim on the beach. We have things like barnacles, clams, cockles that these animals forage for. They're seen fishing for salmon. They only eat the heads of salmon. We believe that's to avoid a bacterial infection they can get called salmon poisoning. But sometimes they'll scavenge some pretty big meals from the beaches. This is a video that shows a group of wolves eating a whale carcass that washed up on the beach in Pacific Rim. Again, powerful animals that will find food on the beaches. And like I was saying, upwards of 90% of their food comes from the ocean. This is a really great example of the kinds of food these animals are able to find on our beaches here. Sometimes those trail cameras give us a glimpse of young wolves, what we call wolf pups. That's what we're talking about today, how wolf pups grow up in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. Wolf pups are usually born in the spring. That's when they have the best chance of survival. So that's usually when they're born. There is between 4 to 6 wolf pups in a litter of pups. And they spend about the first 6 months with their parents learning how, like, drinking milk. So they're nursing from their parents, not quite eating solid food. I've got a series of photos here that's taken from one of the trail cameras showing the wolves as they're kind of passing by their den. So these are some very young wolves. This is when they were newborn. So it's a bit of a slideshow here, but you can see a couple of these pups moving past the den. And as I was saying, they drink milk for the first 6 months of their life. So they're not weaned fully until maybe about 10 months, definitely weaned fully at 10 months. And for that beginning of their life, their parents and their pack mates are actually often helping to feed them. So I've got a video here of some parents bringing food back to the den. So this is one of the parents, and in a few moments, another parent will come up behind them. Again, really great example of how wolves are really dependent on their families for survival when they're young, a lot like us, a lot like humans as we're growing up. We really depend on our families, our friends, and our siblings for survival. Here comes parent number 2. Now, at about 6 months, between 6 months and a year, the wolves are starting to get older. These are kind of getting to be adolescent wolves. These ones are still getting a bit older, and they're still hanging around close to the den. But this next video shows them at the point where they're leaving the den. So this is about a year old, these wolves leaving their den. So there's 2 of them running by. We'll see another couple of the litter mates coming out. So there were 4 pups in this litter, and they are out in the wild now, trying to make their way as grown-up wolves. Now, just like humans, just like us, just like some of my friends who might be joining me today, wolves often learn through playing. They practice their hunting techniques, they practice their survival skills together through play. I've got a few videos here that really show this. So this is a couple wolves playing in the park. Just doing some wrestling around. And honestly, it's not all that different from the way our pet dogs might play. Some of us might have a couple dogs at home, and we might see them play together or play with another dog at the dog park in a really, really similar way. Wolves are, of course, members of the dog family, and they behave a lot like the dogs we know, but it's really important to remember these are wild animals. These aren't domestic dogs. Even though they're having fun and playing a lot like the dogs we know, these are wild animals that deserve our respect. So this playing teaches the wolves how to hunt. You can see they're chasing each other, helps them stay fit, stay active. I've got one more little video here of these same wolves. This video is taken at night, and you can see the reflection of their eyes. It's really amazing, but some of these animals have a reflective membrane at the back of their eye that lets them see in the dark. It's called the tapetum lucidum. Kind of sounds like a spell you might cast if you're a wizard. I love that word. So people have always had a very complicated relationship with wolves. For a great part of the 19th, so the 1800s and the 20th century, the 1900s, there were government-sponsored wolf eradication programs all across North America. And this led to a massive reduction in wolf populations. This is a photo of some wolf hunters from the United States. Around the 1950s, certainly by the 1970s, we start seeing wolves returning to Vancouver Island. Their populations were greatly reduced, but we start seeing their numbers coming back up. And opinions generally changed about wolves around this time. For some cultures, people see wolves as really dangerous animals, and they can be, but other cultures see them as sacred ancestors or really important avatars of nature. And so it's a species that many people care a lot about protecting, and it's something that's really taken off here on Vancouver Island. Today, the greatest threats to wolves in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve and in general is what we call habituation. Habituation is something that happens when wild animals become too comfortable with the presence of humans. It can lead to some very dangerous behaviors and dangerous encounters that put humans and wildlife at risk. Something that we can all do to reduce the chances of animals becoming habituated is to keep a clean campsite. Sometimes it's amazing the things that will attract the attention of wildlife. It's not just food. Even a cooler that's empty can attract wildlife because they can begin to associate coolers with food. They might also find things that smell really good, like toothpaste, or maybe fruity smelling suntan lotion or other things might attract their attention as well. So it's really important when we're camping or visiting our national park reserves, we keep a clean campsite so that wildlife aren't attracted and don't become used to human treats that might be lying around. This is really important to stress. Human food can kill wildlife. Human food is not always good for wildlife, but also that behavior of learning to get food from humans is really dangerous for wildlife. It can lead to extremely dangerous encounters, like I say. And the unfortunate reality is often when there's a dangerous encounter between humans and wildlife, it's the wildlife that pays the price more than human beings. A thing we can do is keep an eye out for signs of wolves in the parks that we visit, and also to obey signage we see. We post warnings in our park reserves to let folks know that there might be a wolf or a bear, cougar, any kind of dangerous animal in the area. And it's really important that you pay attention to those signs. And if there's a sign saying that an area is closed off, that you're not able to visit there, please obey that signage. One thing we're asking folks to do as much as possible is, if you can, leave your pets at home, leave your dogs at home. If you're not able to do that, certainly keep them on a leash and obey any closures for areas where dogs are not allowed. Those are in place for your safety, for your dog's safety, and for the safety of these wild animals in our park. This is a great photo of a wolf footprint. You can see the size of it. They're very large animals, so they're a very, very large dog. And the footprints are pretty similar to what you'd see in a large dog. So you have 4 toes and a heel pad and claw marks. Claw marks is a good distinctive feature that you'll see in wolf tracks, those 4 toes and claw marks. If you see a track that's about this size with 4 toes and no claw marks, good chance that's a cougar footprint. And so it's another indication for you. You need to pay attention and be aware, because there could be another dangerous animal in the area. It's kind of a gross photo, but this is wolf poop, what we call wolf scat. And again, very similar to what you'd see from a dog. I'm sure a lot of kids in class are going, ew, right now. But what you will see in wolf scat is a lot of hair, bone. Wolves are not picky eaters. They eat in packs and they eat really fast to make sure they get a meal before another wolf can snatch it away from them. So they tend to swallow a lot of hair and bone, and you see that in their scat. So if you see a poop that looks like this, chances are that's wolf poop. And again, I really want to stress, obey signage. Pay attention to the signage you see in our parks. Those signs give you really important information. And these are the sorts of places where you might see those warnings posted letting you know that there's a wild animal in the area that you need to be aware of. Sign also mentioned something that's really important, and I can't stress this enough. This is a really important rule for wildlife in general, any wild animal, is to give them a lot of space. We need to respect the space of wildlife. For things like wolves, we want you to stay at least 100 meters away from those animals. So you can see in this image, that's about the equivalent of 10 school buses away. It's a really big distance. And it's important we maintain that distance because these animals can move pretty fast. They can close distances quickly. And also, they tend to get more nervous the closer we get. So the more space we give them, that's the best way for us to be safe and for them to be safe too. Wildlife photography is a really important point. I really want to acknowledge and state again, all those videos, all those pictures you saw in this presentation were taken using remote cameras where there were no humans present. A lot of people like to visit national parks and national park reserves looking for chances to get photos of wildlife. And we really ask people do these things responsibly and keep a few things in mind, especially that rule about giving wildlife space. It's a photo that shows you the types of lenses that wildlife photographers often use. This is a professional wildlife photographer. When you see photos in magazines like National Geographic or Canadian Geographic, and there's these really beautiful up close images of animals, it's a little bit of an illusion. These lenses give that illusion of being really close when you're not at all. And so if you are going to be looking to take photos of wildlife, make sure you're using the right kinds of equipment, the right kinds of technology, and you have the right kinds of training, and make sure, like I'm saying, I cannot say it enough, give wildlife space. No selfie is ever worth your life or the life of an animal. Drones, something that's really important for folks to know is that you need a permit if you are going to be filming with a drone in our park. A lot of us think like, oh, I've got this cool little drone. I'll zoom right in, get some cool footage of wildlife. Drones can cause a lot of disturbance to wildlife. And as I said, you need a permit to fly one of these in our parks. It's actually illegal to fly a drone without a permit in a Parks Canada place. And you can get up to a $25,000 fine for breaking that rule. So don't do it. Save your money, keep your drone packed away when you're in the park reserve, unless you have a permit and you talk to the park reserve about using it. It's really important that we respect wildlife. We work, like I was saying, with 9 different coastal First Nations in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. And a really important principle that we have taken to heart from these nations is the principle of isak, what we call respect. The First Nations on the west side of Vancouver Island have been living with quiet seek, what they call wolves, for thousands of years. They've coexisted with these animals, and they've done so by respecting them, respecting their space, and respecting that these places on the west side of Vancouver Island are their homes as much as ours. This is a beautiful house post carved by Clifford George depicting a wolf that you can see in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. I also want to share a link. I'll post this same link in the chat here so that it can be shared with you folks. This is a link to a really great website that is for the Wild About Wolves Research Project in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. This is a 6-year project that was undertaken that brings together Indigenous knowledge with cutting-edge science, trying to give us a better understanding of how wolves live and behave in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve and how we can better coexist with these animals. There's some wonderful videos on this page where you can hear from Indigenous elders in this region talking about the relationship with wolves. And I really urge you to check it out. It's a really, really great opportunity to hear about this from the elders themselves. So that's my presentation about wolves. That's a little bit about these animals. I'm happy to come back to you now and answer some questions that you might have. I know we've got a Kahoot coming up, so happy to get into that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Joe. And as you said, we're going to dive in with our Kahoot first. Then we're going to do a nice long Q&A with all our live classes. YouTubers, you can start sharing anytime. As we're waiting for folks to pull up the Kahoot, I want to note on the note of a big camera. I live in Newfoundland, as I said. I was in the mountains the other day. I had one of those big lenses, and there was a moose. So we took some pictures of it. We were about, I'd say, 100 meters away, and the moose took a little bit of a charge towards us, which I'm really glad we were 100 meters away because I cannot outrun a moose. So it's very important if you're near big, powerful animals, whether they've got big teeth or whether they're herbivores, give them a lot of space. It goes a long way to helping keep you and the animals safe. So
totally. That 100-meter distance applies to things like bison that you might encounter in our parks. And just a fun thing to show, I do have an old version of one of those trail cameras I was talking about right here. These are the sorts of cameras we use. This is a motion sensor. So when an animal moves through that, it snaps a photo, and that's how we get those photos in Pacific Rim.
How neat is that? I'm going to say the trail camera thing might come up in our Kahoot, and for those who are new, which is most of you, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is Joe and I's everlasting respect. So we are going to dive in with this, and then Mr. Alston, CEAP Elementary, and Madam Broadworth's class, you guys are going to be 1, 2, 3 as we go into the Q&A. Let's get into it with question number 1. People have lived alongside wolves in Pacific Rim for how long? We talked about this at the end. 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, thousands of years. In general, I will say, if we're talking about how long people in North America have lived with animals, it is always going to be a very, very long time because people have been here for about 20,000+ years, which is very, very cool. All right, what's our answer? Let's see what everyone got. Yes, a few of you thought 100. Nope, thousands and thousands of years we have lived with these animals. So really important to drive that point home. Thank you so much for all your answers, everyone. Invincible Parakeet takes our lead. Joe, we go into question 2. We're diving into the wolves now. How did we get all this amazing footage? What is it? Camouflage photographers? Wolf with a camera on its head, trail camera set up in the forest, or they're all AI? Everything you share with us is fake today. I hope not. I don't think so. I want to stress as this question, we work with a lot of conservationists, nature groups around the world. Trail cameras have gotten so much better. They're everywhere now, and we've gotten so many more insights on nature from them. Like they're the coolest tool in conservation in the world. Joe, you persuaded them all, like 90% correct. Yes.
Great job, everyone.
All right, Brave Bear comes into second place. Let's go to question 3. True or false? The Vancouver Island wolves have adapted to become excellent swimmers. A lot of little islands, a lot of ocean. Talked about that a little bit. Eating things on the beach. What do we think? Get those answers in. Get those answers in. All right. 9 more seconds. And a big thank you to our class that the devices aren't working. Our Prevost 1-2. Thanks for sharing in the chat. The answer, yes, is true. Very, very good. All right, let's see what that does. Going to our final question. Does Invincible Parakeet keep the lead? Yes. Over Brave Bear. Final question. And we're doing Q&A. How can you help protect wolves? What do we think? Can you stay far away and give them space? Can you not feed them and keep your campsites clean? Can you visit Parks Canada sites that can continue protecting wolves? Or, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, all of the above? If you ever join us again at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, and I have all of the above in a Kahoot question, you can pretty much guarantee that is the right answer. Yes, most of you got this. Joe, they're killing it. They did so well. All right.
Amazing teams.
Winged Turtle is third. We're going to head to our Cougar Cubs in a minute for our first question. Brave Bear is second. Is it our Parakeet wire to wire? Drum roll, please. It is Invincible Parakeet. Way to go, Levi. I can see celebrating in the chat. Way to go, Levi. Levi's we've got some of our Kahoot Grand Champions today, so they really put up the ante. Well done. All right, Cardston, we're heading to you. Grade 4s, come on in and take us away. And then CEAP, we're coming to you right after that. Hey, folks, welcome in. So many questions. Unmute. Come chat with me. More fun that way. Hi, guys.
Hey, Hallie, come up here.
Why are wolves your favorite animal?
Ooh.
Wow, that's a tough question. You know, it's hard for me to pick favorite animal. They're one of my favorites, I will say. And part of the reason why is I find they're a lot like us, the way they live and work in packs, they work together. I often say one of my favorite things about humans is our ability to work together to solve problems. And I think we have that kind of in common with wolves. And I really appreciate that about them. So that's one of the reasons why I find them so cool.
They're pretty. They rock. Any big toothy predator is my favorite thing. So I'm really glad we got the chance to feature one today. CEAP, we're coming to you. Come on in and take us away. Hey guys, what? You have a big couch, man! Best class ever.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Okay. What's your question?
I forgot.
We forgot. We forgot. Is there anyone else with a question?
We can come back in a second too if you want to take a second. Cool.
Yes, please.
I'll be right back, guys.
Okay,
Broadworth's class. How about you guys? I know you just got your mic on. Any questions?
Question, River. What's your question, River? River, what's the question?
Why do you not feed animals?
Why do we not feed wild animals?
Very nice.
Very good question. Sometimes we might want to because we think wild animals might be having a hard time finding food. But it's important that wild animals find food on their own and don't get used to getting food from people. When animals think that humans will give them food or that humans are an easy source of food, it leads to really dangerous encounters. I know for some wolves, if they think people have food or they're a good source of food, they might try to intimidate us to give them food. They might steal it from our campsites. It teaches them bad things. So it's really important that we let wildlife be wild. They need to find food on their own, and they're very good at doing that. So they actually don't need our help.
This is true of pretty much every animal you can think of. I remember going to Banff National Park in Alberta, and there was "Don't feed the squirrels," and people did feed the squirrels. Yeah. Squirrels came up right on people's knees to try and beg for food. Again, not good for the animals, not good for us. Really, really important, and a really easy thing that we can do as students, as citizens, when we visit these amazing parks. All right, CEAP, you're back. Come on in, take us away. Hey.
Why do drones hurt wild animals?
Ooh.
Really good question. Drones stress animals out. So think about if you were out with your brothers and sisters or something, you're walking around, and then all of a sudden you turned around and there was a drone right there following you down the street. I'd start feeling kind of weird about that. That would make me really uncomfortable. Makes animals feel the same way. It can disturb them and alter their behavior. So it's really important that we keep those drones away from wildlife.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we're like, oh, it's a drone. We understand what's going on. For the animals, it's this weird, noisy, metallic robot that's following it around. It has no conception of what's going on, why that's there. It doesn't know that they can back off if we pull it off. So really important. Again,
absolutely.
Just like space for animals, good to do with drones as well. All right. We're going to take a question from from Cullen, and then we're going to take some from our YouTube class and come back to Levi, our Sarah Thompson group, Prevost, Mrs. Fisher. There's so many of you. I love it. Cullen, take us away.
Hey. Hi. My question is, how many wolves are in a pack?
Ooh.
Hey again, Cullen. Really good question. It depends on the pack. Some wolf packs can be very, very big. We're talking like up to 30 to 50 wolves. But some of them can be pretty small, so like less than a dozen. It really depends on where the wolves are living and the wolf group. But yeah, it's not a really precise answer, but it can be different and can be a really big pack to a really small.
Sweet. Thanks, Colin. All right, we're going to head to our Father LeDuc School, Mrs. Barrett's class. So many questions. Please do write those extra ones down and send them to me. But they and a few other YouTubers want to know, how do they catch fish? Do they catch fish? How many fish did they catch? Tell us more.
They absolutely can catch fish. It's a really interesting thing about these wolves. One of the things that's so unique about them is they're the only wolves in the world that fish for salmon out of rivers. Salmon will spawn in our rivers. So they return every year in fresh water where they were born to lay their own eggs. And when that happens, all sorts of animals come to those rivers, those spawning streams to get food, including these coastal wolves. They'll snatch up a salmon, pull it back into the rainforest, and they like to crunch down on just the head. They can get an infection that's actually potentially fatal from salmon called salmon poisoning. So they don't eat the whole salmon, they eat just the head. That might seem wasteful, but all that salmon helps to fertilize the forest floor. Part of why our forests are so beautiful and thick here in coastal BC is because they get a lot of fertilizer from salmon that come in every year spawning, and they all die after they lay their eggs. It's fascinating.
It's so fascinating. You can literally trace the molecules from the ocean through the fish into the trees. You can do this scientifically. Like, it's really, really neat stuff. And it's because of the wolves, bears, other carnivores that live on BC's coast. So great question, guys. All right. Saul in room 17 wants to know, can wolves be different colors?
Yeah, absolutely. Wolves can be different colors, a lot like we see different dogs can be colors, different colors. Most of the wolves that we see on the West Coast tend to have a grayish, reddish color to them. They're a subspecies of gray wolf. I know some folks were asking in the chat what makes them different from gray wolves. That behavior is a big one. Size is a big one, and color as well. So like some of the gray wolves in the interior are often more grayish or whitish. These ones have a bit more of a reddish tint to them, and we feel, or at least for me, it's a little theory on my part, is it might help them blend in a bit more into some of the coniferous forests that we have here on our coast. Yeah, so they could be all sorts of different colors. You might have noticed some of the wolves in this presentation being really dark, almost black, and that's called melanistic. So sometimes we get wolves that are black, and it's the same thing that we see sometimes with some big cats.
I'm a bit of a sucker for the black wolves. I think they're the coolest looking of all the wolves. So I'm really glad we got that question. Thanks, guys. All right, Lavi, our Kahoot winner, North Topsail Beach, we're coming to you. Sarah Thompson, we're coming to you right after. Take us away. Hey.
Hi, how are
Hey,
you
Lavi.
doing today?
Doing great today.
That's awesome. So,
We've got our wolf here, Australian Shepherd. But
so I was wondering, is there any evidence of wolves eating their own scat to help their microbiome? I know that some rabbits do that.
Cool question.
Wow, that's a fascinating question. You know, I don't know the answer. I've never heard about wolves eating their own scat. You're totally right about rabbits, though. They belong to a group of animals called coprophages. So they do eat their scat. Again, they do basically 2 passes on their food to process it. I don't believe wolves do that, but I'm not 100% sure. It's a really good question, Libby. I might have to do some research to find that one out.
Yeah, I've seen dogs do it. Like, I've seen a whole bunch of puppies and domestic dogs that'll eat each other's poo. I've never seen it. Well, a lot of animals do. Like, your default should be yes. It's a very, very common practice in mammals, but it's a really cool question. I'll try and find out the answer as we do this on Google. But while I'm doing that, we're going to head to Sarah Thompson. Hi, guys. Welcome in.
say hi.
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 Hello, bonjour.
Do wolves travel far?
Or do they stay? Or do they stay?
Oh, they absolutely can. Wolves do travel. Oh, did you have a follow-up?
You had a second bit of that. Yeah, sorry, guys. Do they travel far or what?
They travel. Do they travel far or stay like with
In one
their
spot.
With their den.
Yeah. Nice. Great question, guys.
Great question. When wolves are little, when they're pups, they're staying close to the den. But when they're adults, or when they get to be what we call a young of year wolf, so think like a teenage wolf at about a year old, they start going out and ranging around in the forest or in their territory. They can range pretty far. Like I was saying, they actually swim on this coast. They can swim 13 to 14 kilometers out to islands. There's a chain of islands off of Pacific Rim National Park Reserve called the Broken Group, and the wolves have swum out to those islands. They all move around based on the availability of food. So I was mentioning how they fish for salmon. They'll move to around where they can fish salmon when the salmon are running, and then they'll go looking for other food at different times of the year.
Sweet. So many distinct questions. You guys are an amazing audience today. All right. Our 1-2 group, I'm going to just bring this up. You do maybe have audio? Hello, guys. Let's see. Hello.
Let's see here.
Oh, we can hear you.
So many great questions in the chat, but more fun to say them on camera.
Great. Yarrow, what was your question?
My question is, do any wildlife eat wolves?
Does anything eat wolves? We've actually had this in the YouTube chat too. Any predators of wolves, Joe?
Yeah.
Great question.
So I can kind of answer 2 questions from the chat on that. So I know there was another chat about why do people hunt wolves? So do wolves have any predators? Not really. Maybe when they're little, they might be prey to some other predators that are out there, things like cougars or maybe like a big bear or something like that. But generally speaking, wolves are apex predators. They're at the top of the food web where they live. There's really nothing that hunts them except us, except humans can hunt them. Why did humans hunt wolves a lot back a couple hundred years ago or 100 years ago? It's because wolves come into conflict with people in many different ways around things like agriculture. So sometimes wolves might eat livestock, or some people just might think they're dangerous. I come from a European background. My family's all from around Britain, from Ireland. And in some places in Europe, people see wolves as really dangerous creatures. So that's why people did that back then. We have a different understanding about them now. And really, they have a lot more fear from us than we do from them.
Yeah. Really glad we get this message, and we cover a lot of carnivore coexistence problems around the world. It's not unique to wolves. It's not unique to Canada. And I just really appreciate the question. Thanks, guys. All right, Mrs. Fisher's class. Finally, there's so many of you. I was rogue today. I let in way more classes than I usually do live on camera. I'm going to come to you. We're going to take some from our YouTube friends, and then we're going to go back to our big classes for a few more before we wrap up. But Carsonville, take us away. Hi.
Why do they howl? Do they make different howls like whale sounds?
Great question. I love that one.
Amazing question. I don't have any recordings of their howls. They can do different pitches or different things like that when they're howling. Generally, they do that to communicate with each other over big distances. A wolf howl can carry for kilometers. So it's a great way for wolves all around to hear there's another wolf over there. And I'm certain they can recognize the calls of their pack mates. It's generally how they're able to communicate over great distances and coordinate. Just like those killer whales we talked about yesterday, they hunt together in a group. So they work together to do that, and they need to communicate with one another. So there's probably some subtle differences in wolf calls that help them understand which group they're with, which wolf is calling. They tend to know that sort of thing.
The more we study animal communication, the more intricate and nuanced it is. We had an amazing program with Shane Giro talking about whales talking to one another and the nuance there. I don't think we've done one specifically on wolf calls. We'll have to do that. So thank you for that great question, guys. All right, a great one from YouTube. Elena wants to know, if we leave coolers in our tents when camping, will wolves try to get into them if we're in places with wolves?
Oh boy, I certainly hope not. They can, though. It's really important that we know that when we've got food at our campsite, we should store it properly. It's never a good idea to keep a cooler or food in your tent with you. I'd recommend, if you're on a campsite, most front country campsites, what we call places where a lot of people camp, where you tent and things like that, you could pack your food away in your car. Not ideal, but it's a little better at keeping it contained. But often you'll find in campgrounds that we have specialized containers where people can keep their food. And we ask that you please use those when they're available. It is the best way to keep your food contained and away from wild animals.
Not near as scary as a wolf coming into my tent, but I went to Pinery Provincial Park in Ontario when I was about the age of our students, and we left a box of cereal on the table, and we came back to a raccoon literally sitting with a cereal box in between it, just eating the cereal, and looked very alarmed at us. One of the great joys of my camping life. So thanks for that, guys. All right, we're going to go back to all our live big classes. Mr. Olson's class, we're coming to you first, CEAP, and then we'll wrap up with Mrs. Fisher. Come on in, Cougar Cubs, and take us away. Hey, guys. Dun, dun, dun. Run! No, you're good. You don't need to run. We've got lots of time.
I kind of have two questions. Number one, what is the live scale of the direwolf? And number two, were wolves bigger in the past?
Ooh, wolves bigger in the past and a little bit on the dire wolf, Joe.
Yeah. Definitely dire wolves were massive. I don't have the exact figures of their size, but they were an animal, that a wolf that was bigger than the wolves that we know today. Yes, definitely. What in the prehistoric past, people coexisted with much bigger wildlife, what we call megafauna, that were huge. So dire wolves are one example. You think of things like saber-toothed cats, and we actually had a species of bear called the short-faced bear that was absolutely enormous. Humans did definitely coexist with much larger wildlife in the past, but wolves were around back then too, and they're still here today.
Yep. And I want to stress, because the dire wolf will bring up for a lot of our classes, the idea that the dire wolf is back. And I want to highlight that you will not find any scientist in the whole world outside of the scientists that work for that company that think that the dire wolf is back. It's one of the most universally things that scientists are like, nope, that's not the case. So really important to go into it with that mindset. It's a really cool species. We cannot bring species back from extinction. It's an absolutely non-starter in the scientists and biology and conservation world. Again, except for one company. So important to keep that in mind when it comes to saving species that we do still have, and then we can put a lot of work into making sure they last for millions of years to come. Joe, we're going to head back to CEAP. Come on in and take us away, guys. Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
What are wolves' favorite thing to eat?
Ooh. Oh,
Giving folks a second to join in.
That's okay. Favorite thing to eat. What's the wolves' favorite food?
Oh boy. For wolves in Pacific Rim, I'd say like salmon. They eat lots and lots of salmon. From the forest, they'll eat deer. But one of the things I find most interesting, these wolves will eat seals. Seals are not very agile out of the water. They can't really move very fast. A lot of people tend to call them rock sausages because they just kind of lie like a sausage on the rock. And these wolves are incredibly agile and fast. So they can jump down, grab a seal, and make a meal of it pretty quick. It's amazing. But all their favorite foods are mostly seafoods or foods that come from the water.
Fascinating. I would say that seals are like nature's McNugget. Like they're the easiest thing to catch for most things in the water. So it's good to not be a seal in the ocean, really, just generally speaking. Everything wants to eat you because you are a big ball of fat and very delicious. All right, Mrs. Fisher's class, we're going to wrap up with you guys in 2.2 seconds. I'm going to bring on everyone for a big goodbye in a minute, too. And I will email all our classes tuning in live and on StreamYard today. But do check out the Parks Canada BC series. We've got so much on the go these last few days. They're all on our YouTube channel. And we do like 40 programs a month just broadly, including a ton with Parks Canada coming up in the months to come. So hope to see you all back soon. But Carsonville, come on in. Take us away to wrap up. Hey, guy.
How long can wolves not eat?
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, you stumped me. That's an answer I don't have. I know that most animals aren't really able to survive a long time without eating. They could maybe get by a week, maybe 2 without eating food, but after that, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I don't know the exact number, but I'd say they definitely need to eat regularly to keep their energy up.
I don't know why this is a topic or question keeps coming up in our broadcast, but it gives me the opportunity to say, as a big snake fan, that the longest an animal with a backbone can go without eating is a really big python, which can go 2 years without eating, 2 years between meals, which is crazy. So thank you for
starting that. Yeah.
Joe, before we wrap up and say farewell, is there any final message about wolves, about this amazing series you want to leave us with before we say goodbye?
Just want to thank you all for the questions. I see some in the chat we weren't able to get to today. I'll try to send those answers to Jesse so he can get them to you. Really, really important we keep our wildlife wild. I cannot stress that enough. And remember to give wildlife lots of space if you see them. Make sure you're respecting their space. Remember that principle ESOC that I mentioned. Really, really important that we keep that at heart.
Yeah. Joe, no better message than that. Thank you so much for this. It's been such a thrill for me getting to do this series with you over the last few days, and literally the biggest 4-part series we have ever done in our history at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So kudos to you. Kudos to the team for bringing this together. And as you know, we're going to wrap up every broadcast by bringing in everyone to say a big thank you and farewell. So Mr. Alston Screw, CAP, Colin Lavie.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, friends. Till next time.